At the beginning of this season, I released a video going over my rankings and my first impressions of the new weapons for PvE content. Now that I've been able to craft all these weapons and get good playtime with them, I have an updated ranking so you know which weapons you should finish getting patterns for and what I think are their best roles for PvE content. Remember, if you find this video helpful and like seeing build videos and other Destiny 2 helpful content, leave a like on the video and consider hitting that subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump right on into it. First up in the kinetic slot, we have the Supercluster. This is a strand pinpoint slug shotgun. After trying to use this weapon, it's definitely fallen in the ranks for me. Previously, I ranked it at an S tier with how good it could be in a very specific double slug swap situation, and you could either pair it with Cascades Point or Surrounded depending on your situation. Since Cascades Point requires getting a kill or multiple precision hits, I found it harder to activate than I originally anticipated. Also, it turns out that you can get Fortismo with pretty much the same exact role, being that it also has Surrounded, and it's a kinetic weapon, meaning it'll do an extra 15% damage. In most other scenarios where I'm not double slug swapping, I'd want to run something like Heritage for the insanely powerful single shot with recombination, or something like Swordbreaker, or Until Its Return for a strand shotgun. So because it has a better version being a kinetic role for the very specific double slug swap, this weapon's dropping to a B rank for me. I'm keeping it at a B since it can be crafted and it does have some good perks, but there are definitely better options out there. If you do want to pick up this weapon, I would recommend Reconstruction and Surrounded for generic gameplay. After that, we do have the Appetence. This is a stasis trace rifle, and the more I played with this weapon, the more I liked it. Trace rifles are still a bit behind other weapon types, but for some reason, this one feels good. There are two roles that I really like with this weapon. First, Demolitionist and Headstone. With stasis, you can get your grenade back quicker by breaking crystals. So having a weapon that reloads on grenade usage, gives more grenade energy for kills, and creates crystals for even more grenade energy, synergizes perfect with stasis. The other role I really like is going to be Demolitionist or Overflow, and then also Killing Tally. Slap on a special or heavy ammo finder and you basically never have to reload, while you're doing upwards of 30% more damage with this weapon. This role definitely feels really good, especially when it's paired with Surge mods. Stasis is definitely better this season, but it still struggles compared to other subclasses, except for Stasis Warlock. This weapon on a Stasis Warlock is incredible, so if you're a Warlock that has Osmiomancy gloves, I highly recommend getting this weapon, and would potentially put it on an S tier. But since Stasis still needs a bit of a buff and so do Trace Rifles, this weapon lands at an A rank for me. This is definitely one of the best trace rifles we've had, and could easily land in the S rank with future buffs. But for now, pick it up if you have time, but don't prioritize it, unless you like running Stasis or Stasis Warlock. Now let's talk about Scatter Signal. This is a strand rapid fire frame fusion rifle. This weapon is everything I was hoping for, and more. This season has ways to get Radiant with solar weapons, so I've loved pairing this weapon with a solar primary to get Radiant and deal extra damage with this fusion. This weapon has been a blessing when pairing with Dragon's Breath, since I can shoot a rocket, swap to this weapon, and shoot a bunch of shots and repeat the cycle dealing massive damage. I'm keeping this weapon at an S rank, and in my opinion, this is the #1 weapon that you should be going for this season. The role I like best is going to be Arrowhead Break, Enhanced Battery, Overflow for extra in the mag, and Controlled Burst. This means if you get enough kills and then pull this weapon out, you can have all 18 shots just in one mag. And with Controlled Burst, you're going to be firing those shots quicker and dealing more damage. And since something like Dragon's Breath, you need to take that break in between, you can shoot a rocket, shoot about 5 shots, and then switch back and shoot a rocket again, and you'll be doing massive damage. And the last weapon in our kinetic slot is going to be the Imperative. This is a kinetic high-impact frame scout rifle. I'm still not a huge fan of scout rifles overall because they want you to sit back a little bit more, but the more I played with this weapon, the more I liked it. Previously, I did have it at a B rank, since you can go for Transfiguration from the Last Wish raid. However, now that there's an option for the same best roles, but it's easier to get patterns for, my mind has changed a bit. Like I said, I'm still not a huge fan of scout rifles, but they shine in harder content like GMs. You could go for a classic role with Rapid Hit for extra reload speed, pairing with Explosive Payload or Kinetic Tremors. However, I would like to recommend replacing Rapid Hit with Demo if you do want to use this gun outside of GMs. A role with Demo and Kinetic Tremors is very well rounded, providing more reload, more ability energy, and more damage at all ranges. This has moved up to an A rank for me, since it feels better than expected and has some very good roles to go after. And it's definitely easier to obtain than something like Transfiguration. So pick up a crafted version of this weapon if you can. Alright, moving on to the energy slot, first up we have Lethophobia. This is a void lightweight bow. I had high expectations for this bow, but since so many other weapons this season are good, and I'm not a huge fan of bows, I was a bit let down. With that being said, if you do like bows, this has some pretty decent perks. Repulsor Brace with Golden Tricorn feels best with the Void build, but if you want to go for a utility bow, Permeability and attrition orbs is good for breaking shields in high-end content and creating orbs for you and your team. When it's paired with something like Golden Tricorn, it can deal enough damage, but otherwise it does feel like it's lacking a bit in the damage department. So for that reason, this bow has fallen to a B rank for me, since I don't see many times that I'll be reaching for it. But if you are a fan of bows, then I would probably say this is staying at an A rank, since it does have some pretty good perks, but otherwise don't try to prioritize it too much. It's a good backup if you do have time to go get the patterns for it. Alright, next up we have the Scalar Potential. This is an arc rapid fire frame pulse rifle, and this is definitely a PvP weapon, no doubt about it. I was hopeful that some of the perk combos were going to be good, but at the end of the day, there's only one real role that I can suggest for PvE, and that's permeability with attrition orbs, mainly just for the utility. If you want to run master loss sectors or difficult content in general, breaking shields can be tough in endgame activities. And sometimes you can get a ton of miners that have the same element. So if you do happen to have ones with arc shields, this can be great since you can run something like a solar build, have it as an arc to break all the shields, and then use your barricade to make it a solar weapon so you can keep up your radiant and restoration. And the same thing goes for any void builds or anything like that. So having permeability can help match shields, and since orb creation has been nerfed, you can use attrition orbs to gain even more orbs to power up whatever build you have. It's definitely not the best role, but it is good in the right scenario. And since this weapon only has one decent roll, it's landing at a C rank for me, which it was previously at a B rank. If you like PvP, there are some good rolls out there, but as a PvE main, I'm choosing other weapons before this one, so definitely don't prioritize it if you play a lot more PvE than PvP. Next up we have the Optative. This is a void precision frame hand cannon. I think I hit this one a little bit too hard in my previous video. This is a solid gun. You can get rolls like Repulsor Brace and Golden Tricorn for protection and extra damage, or you can put on attrition orbs and Golden Tricorn for a mix of damage and ability boosting. Definitely feels better than expected, but I just love void weapons that come with Repulsor Brace and destabilizing rounds. Since destabilizing rounds will make enemies volatile, Repulsor Brace basically is always going to be procced, giving you an overshield consistently. And since Word of Crota does exist with that role, I have to take that into account when I'm giving this weapon a rating. Previously it landed at a C rank, and now I've bumped it up to a B rank. It's the same case scenario as the bow for me. If you like hand cannons, it might go up to an A for you, but I'm keeping it as a B since this season has high competition for good guns. It is very good on void builds, but I like Solar and Strand as my two primary builds right now. So for that reason, I'm not choosing it over some of these other weapons. But if you do love hand cannons or void builds, definitely go after this gun. It is pretty strong. Alright, moving on to the Adhortative. This is a solar adaptive frame pulse rifle. This weapon feels good as I hoped it would. Being an adaptive frame means it's good in most scenarios, close, medium, and long range. So putting on heal clip with incandescent pairs perfectly with a solar build, and frankly, most builds in general. I honestly think heal clip is being slept on a bit. After each kill, you can reload and proc cure, giving you and close by teammates 60 health, which is more than a quarter of your health. Having a way to consistently heal yourself and cause scorch and ignitions is super powerful, and plays into all your solar builds, and the fact that you can also pair heal clip with other strong builds like Strand or Void means that you can have impeccable healing with this gun. I'm leaving this gun at an A rank. Since we do have other weapons that can roll with heal clip and incandescent, it's nothing new, but it is super powerful. If you like running solar subclass, this is a must pick up from this season. And finally in our energy slot, we have the Subjunctive. This is an arc lightweight frame SMG. I would take it all back if I could, but I can't. I was definitely sleeping on the lightweight SMG. While it struggles more at long ranges, with the arc subclass, you want to be up close and personal to trigger health regen and other buffs. And because of that, SMGs are super strong. This weapon can get threat detector and volt shot, so you can build more into your subclass, dealing more AoE damage and quicker reloads. This weapon will definitely be replacing my Ikilos SMG. Being able to proc volt shot so often is not only going to give you more damage to multiple targets, but it's also going to be able to give you more ionic traces back, meaning you can get more ability energy back. And the Arc Grenadier Titan is already super strong, so having even more ability energy, plus more damage and AoE damage, what more can you ask for? For that reason, I'm moving this weapon up from C rank all the way to A rank, since I do think this will be the new king of Arc SMGs. And finally, we have the power weapon slot, where we have the Doom Petitioner. This is a void aggressive frame linear fusion rifle. And boy oh boy was I wrong about this weapon, and you all did not hesitate to tell me that. See, since I made that previous video only 2 days after the launch of the new season, I wasn't able to try out Precision Instrument on a burst weapon. I assumed that it would gain a stack on each burst, and you lose it if you didn't hit any of the pellets in a single burst. But for some reason, you gain a stack with each pellet in a burst, and only lose that stack if you miss all shots in a burst, meaning you can get up to a 30% damage increase by the end of 2 bursts, which is quicker and more damage than Focus Fury, and offers the same risk as Focus Fury. Not to mention that you can get Reconstruction or Envious Assassin, so you basically never have to reload. With Envious Assassin, you can pretty much put all of your shots into one clip. Some people claim that it's the best damage linears have to offer, and I believe that it's either the best or very close second. Since the only other weapon that I was truly comparing this to was Briar's Contempt, and that best roll had Focus Fury, Precision Instrument is just going to take over for me. And since I was unaware of how powerful Precision Instrument really was on a burst weapon, I previously ranked this a D. Once I found out how powerful that perk really was, especially on this weapon, it immediately jumped up in the ranks for me. While there still are some damage rotations like rockets that can output more DPS, this weapon is one of the best, if not the best linear this game has to offer. So for that reason, I'm giving it an S rank. If linears ever go back to being the best DPS option, you'll definitely want to already have this weapon in your arsenal. And finally, for a bonus weapon, the Crux Termination. And since I spoke on this weapon last time, I'll touch on it again. I still have yet to get the God Roll since it's a world drop. However, I think the God Roll is going to be Slide Shot and Surrounded. It's a little bit risky, but it's very good. Surrounded will give you up to a 40% damage increase, which is higher than Bait and Switch, but it is a bit more risky. And since most bosses in seasonal activities, strikes, and dungeons will have enemies around you, it'll be fairly easy to activate and keep up. Not to mention that with Slide Shot, you can quickly sprint and slide to reload. Since I find myself doing that in most damage phases, especially in seasonal activities, this is the perfect offering, a way to never have to reload and deal a ton of damage. Definitely keep an eye out for a roll with Slide Shot and Surrounded, or a roll with Envious Assassin and Bipod. I'm keeping this weapon at an S rank, since it has some very good perk combos, so keep an eye out for that God roll. There you have it, all the seasonal weapons with updated ranks and what I think are their best rolls. Let me know in the comment section which weapons you're going for first, and what your favorite rolls are on these weapons. For me, it's the Scatter Signal with Envious Assassin and Controlled Burst. That's going to be it for me. Peace out.